Hello everybody and welcome. I am the Rambling Director. So I've talked about it in a couple videos now. I went and saw the Sonic the Hedgehog movie and I really liked it. And it got me thinking, what was the reason that I liked the Sonic movie but didn't care so much for Alvin and the Chipmunks and some other movies that do some very similar tropes? So it just got me thinking about that, and I sort of went through and made a list, and I think I've realized exactly what it was that I liked about Sonic that I maybe didn't like so much about those other movies. I think it's important to understand what makes a good character. Now, there are a lot of things that go into making a good character, especially making a memorable character. That's a very, very hard thing to do, as it turns out, and I think a lot of movies have proven that that's not always an easy thing to do. So really, when talking about character, there's some important things to understand. What makes a good character is generally that the character is active. Now, there are passive characters that are great characters, but by far, generally, the most memorable and the best characters are active participants in the story. So, while you do have once in a while a passive character, generally you want active characters. So what is an active character? An active character is somebody who drives the story, whereas a passive character is a character that is driven by the story. So in Alvin and the Chipmunks, are the Chipmunks active characters? No, because Dave pretty much makes all of their decisions for them. In Woody the Woodpecker, is Woody an active character? He's not a likable character, and he certainly isn't funny. He doesn't have many redeeming qualities at all, but I think the most criminal part about it is that the only ways in which he affects the story are negative. What really drives the story is Lassie from Psych really wants to build his house, and Woody the Woodpecker is making that very hard to do. And the movie tries to frame it like Lassie is the villain, but everything he is doing is relatable and understandable, whereas everything Woody does is an absolute abomination of nature. He's very unlikable. He's really more of the antagonist, truth be told. His character is incredibly half-assed, and I mean, he's just a one-walking cliche after another. I mean, he even pauses the movie at one point just to look at the audience and say, hey, just because he's giving me food doesn't mean we're friends or anything. Like, just shoving it down our throats that, okay, obviously he's going to grow and become their friend or whatever, which is never earned when it happens. It's never earned that they become friends. It's just the story says it has to happen. In Hop, it's all about this contract, this family tradition handing down from one bunny to the next, giving over the tradition of the Easter Bunny, and that is really what makes EB's character. EB in Hop is, to a degree, he is an active character, but he's not a character who makes relatable decisions. I guess what he's trying to do is be like, hey, I don't want to be the Easter Bunny, and so he goes off and does things that really are pointless. There isn't much of a story to the movie Hop. It's just kind of Russell Brand playing a rabbit and doing things. There's not much of a story. What little bit there is driven by James Marsden's character, not by E.B. himself, who you would think would be the main character. And the movie treats him like he is, but he really is not a very active character. Very little of what's happening is directly because of him, and what is never something he takes responsibility for. Also, he's a very irresponsible character. He realizes that Easter hinges upon him doing this, and yet he's perfectly content to waste massive amounts of time and ruin his family tradition, which is not something that would be relatable to anybody. Sure, be yourself, but at the same time, you would never want to disgrace and damage your family unless your family was somebody you didn't like. And the family in Hop is not established that way at all. They all seem very reasonable. In Yogi Bear, the ranger really is what moves the plot forward, and Yogi is almost completely pointless. Yogi himself is an incredibly passive character, as was the cartoon, so you could say good on them for adapting it properly, but that doesn't make an interesting cinematic character. Yogi is completely pointless. Where Sonic is an active character. Okay, he's also probably the most three-dimensional character on this list. Sonic in the new movie, he gets angry. He's incredibly lonely. When he gets angry, he sparks off this sonic boom, no pun intended, and that is what starts the plot of the film. It is Sonic's own fault that the plot gets started. He is the one who sets everything into motion. Active. When Sonic realizes what has happened, he takes action and decides, okay, I have to run away. Active. Now, when he loses his rings, he knows that the Donut Lord can help him. So, he says, listen, you got me into this. You have to help me get out of this. You're the only person that I know that can get me to San Francisco. You have to do this. That's active. He's actively participating in that. Donut Lord does not want to do it, but obviously he is convinced to do it. Sonic solves his own problems. He makes a lot of his own messes, but he cleans up his own messes. He's relatable. He's funny. He's somebody who makes choices we can get behind and he's also built on a very relatable theme. That theme being running away versus taking responsibility. So why don't we talk about that a little bit more? Theme. The theme of Alvin and the Chipmunks? Family? Maybe? Or maybe the theme is that kids shouldn't be famous? Maybe greed is bad unless the main character does it? I don't know. The theme is very confused in Alvin the Chipmunks. Woody the Woodpecker. The theme is very confused. It's the environment is good and progress is bad unless the main character is doing it. Again, it has a very half-assed family message. Hop, I guess the message is be yourself, but by the end, he ends up coming back and being the Easter Bunny. So what was learned? Okay, he didn't learn to take responsibility. He just kind of does it at the end. And even then, he kind of half-asses that because he gives that responsibility in part to somebody else. Yogi Bear. My gosh, there was no theme to Yogi Bear at all. There's no theme at all. In Sonic the Hedgehog, the theme is clearly running away versus taking responsibility. You can't get any clearer than that. And it is based around the character. Character-driving theme. That is a great way to do it. If the theme is driving your characters, they can get lost in it. But instead, the writers and the directors clearly said, okay, what is Sonic good at? He's good at running away. Okay, what if we took that and metaphorically made it into something? Okay, Sonic has to learn that sometimes you can't run away, sometimes you have to stand up for yourself. You can't run away your whole life, which is what he has literally been doing. Okay, people say, metaphorically, I've been running for my whole life. They use that metaphor a lot in movies, but he has literally been running his entire life. You have to take responsibility. You have to stand up for yourself. And the characters fully represent that. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Let's jump over to the motivations of our human characters. This is very important. I think this is why the whole human and talking creature movie genre that's kind of cropped up, I think this is why it doesn't work. It's because the relationships and the motivations are not believable. Or they're unlikable. Case in point, Alvin and the Chipmunks. What is Dave Seville's principal driving force throughout the entirety of the Alvin and the Chipmunks movie? Greed. Greed. That's all he cares about. I want to be a songwriter, but nobody's singing my songs. I need an angle. I need something. Oh, chipmunks. Hey, how about I exploit these people? Chipmunks. How about I exploit these beings to get what I want, to fulfill my own selfish desires. And that's what he does the entire movie. But don't you forget that when an evil corporation does it, get my other air quote in there, when a corporation does it, that's when it's evil. But when it's your father doing it, your father figure exploiting you, well, that's perfectly fine. In a Hop, the motivation is merely family pressure. Now, this is something that Hop does do right. or it's at least it starts to. EB is being pressured by his family. James Marsden's character is being pressured by his family. Now, the two of them are running away. They meet up, and nothing happens. See, that's where the film goes wrong, because if these two had grown off of each other, the film could have been fantastic. It's even a kind of a cool idea, have a human Easter bunny and have a human interacting with the Easter bunny. It's a neat idea, and there's not a lot of Easter bunny movies, but it does nothing with the idea, and that's probably the worst part about it. If it done something great, it could have been a great movie. It could have been one of the all-time great Easter movies, but it's not. Because of that exact reason. But they did understand that much. Hey, we need these characters to be complementary. That was a good start. They just needed to have gone all the way with it. Woody the Woodpecker. The kid who befriends Woody literally has no motivation up until Woody can help him win at a Battle of the Bands concert, at which point his motivation becomes greed. And Lassie has only the motivation of greed the entire movie. To the point he actually bribes Woody to leave him alone. But here's the funny thing. He's treated as if he's greedy, but all he wants to do is build his house. That's not greedy. He wants to build his house without this demented demon constantly harassing him. Now, it's true the house is ugly, but that's completely not important. He has the right to spend his money however he wants to. The ranger in Yogi Bear has a motivation: save Jellystone Park from destruction. It's a good, strong motivation. However, Yogi has no complementary motivation. Yogi has no motivation at all up until the very end of the movie when he decides he wants to save Jellystone. And even then, his contribution is nada. He contributes nothing. The ranger does it all by himself. Yogi is a completely useless character. Now, James Marsden, not in Hop, but in Sonic the Hedgehog, his motivation is responsibility. So he is openly seeking out to take on more responsibility by becoming a police officer in San Francisco, where Sonic is running away. He believes his responsibility is to run away, whereas James Marsden's responsibility, he feels, is to confront. Okay? And throughout the movie, we see James Marsden slowly say, you know what, maybe I don't need to go looking for more. Maybe I have the responsibility. Maybe all that responsibility I want is something I already have. Whereas Sonic says, maybe running away is not my responsibility. Maybe my responsibility is to confront. And throughout the film, James Marsden's character has a strong goal to become not just necessarily becoming a police officer is a means to that end, but what he wants to do is save lives. He wants to save a life, and he wants to protect somebody. He wants to have somebody in a crisis look at him for direction, and he be able to give that direction. And that is a goal he meets throughout the movie. The ranger, his goal is to save Jellystone, and he does that. Good for him. 1 point to Yogi Bear. Hop. There is no goal. None of the characters have necessarily a goal because James Marsden's character in Hop does not want to get a job, does not want to be anything with his life necessarily. What he wants is just kind of do his own thing. And even then, he still ends up doing what his family wants him to. He doesn't do his own thing. He just decides out of the blue that he wants to be the Easter Bunny. He has no goal. What's Dave's goal? To get rich. Well, he fulfills that. He fulfills having a song sung and stuff in the first third of the movie. There's nothing after that. And Woody the Woodpecker, none of the characters have goals except Lassie, who wants to build his house. He achieves that goal, and his house is burned down. I've never felt so sorry for a character in a movie in my life. Now, guilt is another motivation of James Marsden and Sonic, because he is the one who shot Sonic with the tranquilizer dart. So he feels a responsibility to take care of him, which he does. That theme of taking responsibility. He made the mistake, so he takes responsibility for it. Now, one last thing that I think is quite strong in Sonic the Hedgehog, as opposed to a lot of these other movies, the villain. And I think it's a big one. Okay, a conflict in a movie is a great way to make the movie interesting. Not every film has a conflict, some don't, but conflict is typically a method of getting the audience involved. And none of these films have great villains except for Sonic the Hedgehog. I'll show you what I mean. Robotnik. He's arrogant. He's controlling. He wants his goal, scientific discovery, and to prove his own intelligence because he's so arrogant. Now, arrogance is a flaw of Sonic's. Sonic is also arrogant, but not to the same degree. And throughout the film, he learns to become more humble and reliant on others, whereas Robotnik never does. And his reliance only on himself and his machines is his undoing. That's good writing. And one redeeming quality that only one other villain on this whole list has. He's funny. Okay, now I thought when they cast Jim Carrey, I thought you could not have chosen somebody worse to play Robotnik. But after seeing him, I realized why. He captures Robotnik's eccentricities. He captures the character that we love, but he also is hilarious. He plays up those eccentricities, plays up those flaws, and makes them something really memorably great. Really memorably funny. The only other character on the list is Uncle Ian from Alvin and the Chipmunks. He is the only funny thing in Alvin and the Chipmunks. But what is his motivation? Greed. Again, though, it's okay when Dave Seville does it, not Uncle Ian. Woody the Woodpecker, the father. Greed and annoyance is his motivation. Hop, the dad, and Carlos. The dad is actually right every time he's angry, and Carlos is taking charge because EB is not responsible. Yogi, the villain, is greed. Greedy corporations. You see what I'm talking about here? So these are what Sonic has over these other movies, and I think that's the reason why it turned out so much better. Now listen, I totally get it. If you don't like this movie, no harm, no foul. Especially, I said in my review, it is a very different take on Sonic the Hedgehog, and not everybody's gonna like that take, and that's cool. But what I don't like is that people acting like objectively that Sonic the Hedgehog and these other movies are on the same footing, because they're not. But if anything, being a Sonic fan seems like it should make me like this movie less. And actually, I like it because it played with my expectations. I thought it was going to be trash, and I ended up really, really liking it. And just because a trope is done badly in many, many other movies, I got news for you. Most tropes are done badly in most movies. It's because the majority of movies aren't good. Just like the majority of paintings aren't good. Just because you have to wade through some crap to find the diamonds doesn't mean that a diamond can't use some of the same ingredients, right? And that's all I'm saying, is I think that it really was a cut above these other movies, and to act like it's not progress, I think is undermining, it's undermining the efforts of a lot of filmmakers by doing this. A lot of people made this movie and clearly saw these other films and these other tropes and decided to try to do something really, really good with them, and I think they succeeded. Always have your own opinion, but that's just mine. So, thank you for watching, and I hope maybe this got you thinking a little bit about why certain movies can do certain tropes and they work okay. So thank you everybody for watching. As always, I'll see you in the next one, and yeah, thanks. Bye.